Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got an expert panel with us this week, which is I think it's our first expert panel, which I will get them to do their own introductions a little bit later on once I've done my little bit of admin and intro to the BBA and what the heck we're all doing here today. So what are we looking at in this webinar? I call it a webinar. It's more of an open panel discussion. So we're putting the spotlight on steel reinforcement quality, industry expectations on performance, sustainability, innovation, trends, challenges, the whole shebang. I'm your host, Pete Sumpton. I'm delighted to be joined by the panelists, Stephen, Alex, Phil, Dave. Unfortunately, Jamie's having a little bit of trouble finding somewhere where he can connect, so maybe he might join us later, but at the moment we haven't got a Jamie. I'll get everybody to introduce themselves a little bit later on, but let me do my intro and then we'll get onto the good stuff. Okay, so if you're new to this, what the BBA do is we run a webinar every other week, but throughout March until I think it's the final week in March, maybe we've got one every single week. And you can find all the future and previous webinars by going to the website, the BBA website, as you'll see a little graphic do its thing at the bottom there. Go to the website at the top, click on webinars, and you'll see all the future and all the previous webinars that we've hosted. Best way to keep up to date is either use that link and go to that web page, or if you scroll down to the very bottom of our web page, you'll see a link to subscribe to the mailing list. The URL's there, and the reason it's in this slide, you can't click on them, but the reason it's in this slide is because we make every single slide deck a PDF, put it on the website for you to download and view at your leisure, so those links will work in those PDFs. Easiest way to subscribe, scroll down to the bottom of the website, and the links there to sign up to the newsletter, and we'll keep you informed every month with what's going on. A little bit about the BBA and who they are. For over 55 years, 56 years, been helping the construction and manufacturing industry build confidence, and that's in the solutions, the innovations, the designs, the creations, the products and services. And this is to help the entire supply chain. So the idea is we help all stakeholders within the industry. We look to develop long-term partnerships. I'm pretty sure we'll come on to that a little bit later on, with all our clients and associations, and look for growth not just in the UK but in global marketplaces. But it's important to remember BBA will always remain reassuringly impartial. Final point is that the BBA is actually a for-profit organisation limited by guarantee. And what that means is that the BBA looks to reinvest for the good of the construction industry, any profits that it might make. So that's to benefit you, me, and all panelists and all stakeholders. What does the BBA actually do? Well, we're best known for agreement certification, which goes through PAC, product approval certification. That includes the agreement, reproduction, and HAPA certification. But we also do things such as testing, audit and inspection, management systems such as ISO 9001, and more recently UKCA marking. And the one that isn't there is we do bespoke schemes, one of which is a steel reinforcement scheme, and that's kind of why that alludes us on to what we're going to talk about today. It's not a sell, it's just that's why we've got this fantastic panelist, because we've been talking to all of them because we're keen to provide value within this industry. To date, issued over 6,000 agreement certificates, and we, on an annual basis, inspect and assess over 8,000 times. That's annually. So we have to say we do our due diligence. Okay, with that in mind, what I'd like to do is introduce the panel. So I'm going to be very crude and go right back to the start because that's the easiest slide to introduce everybody. And in no particular order, I'll go from top to bottom. Stephen, can you kick us off by introducing yourself before we get on to all the topics?
Yeah, happy to. Good morning, all. Stephen Elliott, I'm the chairman of the British Association of Reinforcement. My background is too many years than I care to mention, working in the concrete industry. I blame it all on a misspent youth playing with Lego bricks and taking it from there. Anyway, like I say, I'm the chairman of the British Association of Reinforcement, and we're a trade association of the major reinforcement manufacturers and fabricators and accessory suppliers for the UK. Our role is to forward the reinforcement sector in terms of forwarding industry best practice, market development, and providing a focal point and a forum for that industry to take the industry forward. Basically, we try to be as proactive as possible. There's a range of challenges which are facing this sector, and I hope that today we can look at those challenges and all agree on the best way to address them.
Fantastic, thank you. Over to you, Alex. Oh, Alex, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's
hello.
better.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Alex Smith. I'm the Compliance Director with Total Construction Supplies, and I'm here today on behalf of BIRFA, which is the Independent Reinforcement Fabricators Association, much like BAR, but for the independents.
Excellent. Phil?
Good morning all. Now, I'm Phil Taylor, Chief Executive at ArcelorMittal Kent Wire, one of the largest suppliers of fabric reinforcement and prefabricated reinforcement elements to the UK construction industry. Thank you.
And by last but no means least, Dave.
Good morning, I'm Dave Sheedy. I'm the Sustainability, Quality, Net Zero and Environmental Lead for ArcelorMittal Kent Wire. I've been in the industry for too many years, not as many as Phil, and I work with Alex on BSI committees to write the standards for our industry.
Fantastic, great mix of people within the industry, which is great to see. Right, I'm just going to skip forward, so apologies. Here we go. Okay, so let's get on to all the topics we're going to talk about today. The first is about the industry and the market in general. So what I'd first like to ask, I'm going to start with Phil. I think in terms of industry trends right now, what is going on in steel reinforcement that we need to know about?
Well, certainly, yeah, there's a lot of move towards off-site fabrication, and that's an area that we specialize in. So trying to bring products to site that are made in a factory environment where repeatability, quality, safety are all paramount to the drivers that we're trying to provide to the market.
Okay, excellent. Stephen, in terms of industry trends, then, what are you seeing that's developing at this moment?
Well, basically, in terms of trends, Phil's spot on with the increased use of offsite. That is something that is aiming to make construction sites a lot more efficient. With other trends, which I think are emerging and we're going to have to start addressing, is that offsite construction deals with the level of skills on site. It reduces the amount of men who install. I think we're going to increasingly start seeing trends of increased robotics, not only on site but also in the reinforcement factories themselves. Again, that's going to be other trends. Obviously, are meeting net carbon, meeting our carbon requirements, and I know that ArcelorMittal are doing a lot of work, not only in the UK here, but also in terms of manufacturing to bring it down to zero. Some very exciting moves there. And I know that Celsa, I'm sure if you go on their website, in spite of Jamie not being here, they're doing a lot of the circle economy. So CO2 in terms of not only the manufacturing, but also the placement of reinforcement is obviously a very important trend for all of us. Also, I think there's an increased focus on performance and quality. which is one of the reasons why BBA, why we welcome BBA stepping in with the new certification scheme so that we have choice in the market. There's always going to be a focus on quality. That's now and the trend for the future. So prefabrication, CO2, increased performance, quality, they're ongoing trends for the industry.
Fantastic. We'll touch on sustainability and all of that in a little bit more detail a bit later on. But David, I'd just like to get your take on that in terms of trends that you see in the overall marketplace from that kind of sustainability, net zero perspective.
It's growing week by week. Every contract now, before we can even start to tender, we must demonstrate our sustainability credentials. And since we started work on the Tideway project a number of years ago, we've been carrying out sustainability returns on a monthly basis with them. We have customers coming to us looking for the lowest possible carbon products, rejecting steel made from basic oxygen steel making because its carbon footprint is too high. Fortunately, the industry as a whole predominantly works with steel made via electric arc furnaces, which has a much lower carbon footprint, even lower than the figures stated in the ICE database, which a lot of designers are using as their key reference point for the industry. But the focus is going to grow and grow and grow.
Okay, that's good. So does that actually, in terms of industry trends, does that have an impact on imports and exports? Is that something that's going to be tighter in the future because of where it's traveling from and the impact that has on the environment?
Absolutely, but the shipping industry is currently subject to greater scrutiny. And I know with an intern that's been working with myself, Alejandra, she's been studying that deeply. And we're noting that the hydrogen technologies that we're looking at to develop steel making to make it cleaner and greener are being looked at as the fuels for the shipping, or as being developed by ArcelorMittal, where we're looking at taking the off gases from steel making to convert it into a net zero biofuel, which theoretically could be used to power the ships and the trucks to deliver our products from the mill to us and onto the site, using a waste product to create a net zero outcome.
Fantastic. That's great to see that level of innovation, and again, that's a topic I want to discuss a little bit later on in a little more detail. Just moving to industry challenges, and Alex, I know we haven't heard from you yet. So in terms of challenges for steel reinforcement industry, what are we facing here?
Well, the biggest challenge obviously facing us at the moment is supply and demand. So the UK market is demanding ever more, and whilst Dave's dead right in the fact that we do need to prove our sustainability credentials before we can even go for these major contracts, which we do need to do, and we've all got a major part to play in that. There's just not enough UK supply. So the reality is that we are facing imports. Yes, we want them to be sustainable, and we need to ensure that they're maintaining sustainability and environmental approvals, to do as much as we can on that front. But the demand is outstripping supply, and then the big challenge that's related to that is the quotas, and this, that, and the other. So it's not easy at the moment, but we are in a bit of a deficit, which is a shame in the UK.
Sure. Stephen, just moving on from that, I think what's happened recently in the whole world has impacted nearly every single industry. How has the pandemic affected things in steel reinforcement in terms of challenging times?
I think construction as a whole has, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and I expect the other panelists will shout me down for this. I think that the construction industry as a whole, with the help of the government, they were able to work through the lockdown scenarios a lot easier than other sectors were. Construction was seen as an essential industry that had to keep going, and certainly looking at going back to what Alex has said about supply and demand, it's certainly an industry that's jumping back a lot quicker than other sectors, i.e. hospitality, etc. So in terms of the pandemic, I don't think it had as big an effect on our sector as other sectors, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I'd like to go to Phil after that. Anything to add to that in terms of the last few years in construction?
I think I admire the construction industry for its resilience and the supply chain resilience. Yeah, COVID's thrown up an awful lot of new challenges for us, but we face those challenges head on. Yeah, it's been tough at times, but fundamentally we've been able to keep operations going, keep building sites, working through the dedication of the team that we have in our business for sure, to find new ways to combat the challenges that we faced and continue to produce and deliver product to the construction sites. So it's the resilience that I admire in our sector during tough times, because we're used to tough times, and we've done well during the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, that brings me on to another point, and I'm not sure if it's an industry challenge or not, but the age of the workforce, it's obviously a more of a traditional industry. But do you think there's an aging workforce or potentially a skills shortage to come?
Certainly there's a skill shortage, there's no question about that, and finding quality people since Brexit has been a massive challenge, I think, for all of us, and certainly for our business. Age profile is not too bad in our organisation, but attracting new people to come and join us has been a real tough challenge for us, and remains a challenge. And we're looking at ways to be more innovative with engaging with the local council, the local university, the local university technical college, to try and bring both spectrums, from the youngsters, the 18, 20-year-olds that have been at the technical college, through to the generation of, say, plus 50s that might want to look at retraining and reskilling and moving into our sector. But yeah, it's not been an easy task for us, especially during a period where expansion has been the order of the day for the last couple of years. Expansion during a pandemic is tough enough in itself, but then to add Brexit issues where we lost a lot of workers from Eastern Europe that went away and never came back. That's been tough for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. So Dave, just finally on challenges. From my perspective, what I've been reading up, and it's interesting because Women in Construction is Women in Construction Week is next week, I think. I should know that because I've been chatting to people about it. Do you feel that there's link into age and skill shortage and workforce? Do you think there's an image problem maybe with construction generally, but steel reinforcement and getting people involved in that?
Well, over the last couple of years, through our links with Greenwich University, we are going in the opposite direction with that. Myself and Phil and other staff members have got involved with mentoring students, but we've specialised in dealing with the underrepresented in our industry. And we're very, very fortunate. We actually have four young ladies that have actually become part of the business from the university in different areas: design, sustainability, quantity surveying. So we're hoping that with the example of these young ladies, that we can spread the good word that reinforcement isn't an inclusive industry, and we can shed the images of the past and bring things forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely with you on that. I just want to move across to developments in the marketplace, and let's start with Stephen again, because you mentioned robotics at the start of this conversation, and it's something that came up in my research. So in terms of market development, has there been more investment in robotics and things like modular construction?
I think it's an area gaining traction. We've talked about skill shortages, robotics. If you take the car industry, the way that that's been transformed by robotics, I think we're going to see in the near future the same momentum in the reinforcement manufacturing sector. And I think what we've talked about all the time, the focus of all these challenges, the answer to these challenges, innovations and thinking beyond outside the box. In terms of skill shortages, I know that ArcelorMittal think outside the box, where not only to look at the younger generation, but to look at injecting more people into the industry, widening the pool of the industry. All thinking out the box. We're going to have to think outside the box in dealing with carbon, in dealing with increased performance. And you'll see that when Dave talked about hydrogen, it's all innovation. And I think these challenges, they're forcing the industry to re-examine itself. And I don't mean they're looking at the belly fluff. I mean, to look at what better ways of doing it. Instead of just thinking, oh, that's the way we've always done it, so it must work. No, the industry increasingly is now thinking there must be a better way. And that's going to come through from manufacturing the reinforcement, through to training the staff, through to the installation of the reinforcement at the construction site. And that fills me with a lot of optimism for the industry. The fact that they're not like taking things. I'm seeing increasingly my members looking at new ways of doing things. Now, whether that's outside factors forcing them to do it, whether it's because they're being more aware, I don't know. But all I know is there is more and more of this out of the box thinking, and that's going to drive the industry.
Alex, I'd just like to come to you just to elaborate on that, or get your take on embracing digital technology in this industry and further market developments. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's always looking to push the industry on. It's quite a forward-thinking industry. It's an old-fashioned industry, and historically it has been. Obviously, we are looking to make changes as we go along. We're doing a lot kind of with IT and the systems and the way that information shared across the whole of the business, multiple sites, live information. We're going very much down that route with everything. On the product side, obviously, yes, we do look for innovation wherever possible, but with the robotics, they've always been kind of frowned upon in the industry because we're not dealing with precision materials, we're not in automotive, we're in rebar. The quality issues have always preceded robotics. There are obviously, we've got to look at avenues to overcome that, and robot welders and such have kind of not been exposed to the same scrutiny in the past in this industry as manual welders have. So they fell into a hole, and if the industry is going to dig them out of that hole, there's a lot of work to do. I think we're all, we're kind of, everybody's open to the idea. They're just not quite there yet.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. And Phil, in terms of running an organisation, what are you doing in terms of embracing new technology or new ways of thinking and developing the marketplace?
Yeah, certainly if we pick up on the robot theme, we've already investigated quite heavily over the last couple of years the introduction of robots, because as labour becomes as scarce as it has done, alternatives need to be found. And there are some challenges in the technology, as Alex touched on, because of the nature of the product that we're working with. But I think those challenges, I can see a solution to them. They're not quite here today, but I think if you speak to me in 5 years' time, I could imagine an army or a fleet of robots in my factory delivering a quality prefabricated product to the construction industry.
Fantastic. I like that forward thinking, and I'd like to see that factory when it's up and running. Dave, I'd just like to move the conversation on to another topic. I know we're almost short of time, which is unreal, and that's onto sustainability. Definitely your bag. What expectations? I know we've touched on it very slightly at the start, but what are you seeing in terms of expectations from a manufacturer or fabricator perspective on sustainability, and how is that developing?
Well, thank you. Over the last few years, most government infrastructure projects now have to be subject to BREEAM certification, which means proving environmental and sustainability levels straight at the start project, right the way through design, through manufacture, installation, and the rest of its operational life. And that inference is coming to us constantly. And when we're very fortunate that we have the ArcelorMittal group backing us up, and the investment that they're putting in. I mean, we're actually targeting in Spain, I believe, by 2025 to have our first 2 net zero carbon steel plants, where Asturias will be creating the billets, moving them using electricity, which is from renewable sources, to Celsa, the processing plant, which will use pure renewable source electricity and hydrogen. We will be creating net zero steel. We're looking at the same processes in America, in Brazil, in Canada, in Germany, and some of the areas of our expertise. If you look on our corporate website under XCarb, you can see the videos and the advancements there, and they're absolutely mind-blowing. And I try and keep up with them on a weekly basis, and some weeks there could have been 4 announcements within a matter of hours, and I'm lagging behind. We're pushing forward that hard on it.
Fantastic. That's great. I'll just jump to Phil as well, just to, if you've got anything to add to what Dave was saying in terms of what you and the organisation are doing.
Yeah, from a corporate level, all I'd add is that we can't do it on our own as a standalone business. We need the support of governments as well, because it's a huge investment, and we've got to be careful that we don't commercially disadvantage ourselves by doing the right thing for the environment, and then the market still accepting imports from countries where they're not, or suppliers that aren't doing the same level of investment, whether that means a carbon border tax or some other mechanism to make sure that we remain on a level playing field while we try to do what is absolutely the right thing for the environment to reduce the CO2 emissions from steel making, which we know are very high, and we need to do something about it. And I'm pleased that we're part of the ArcelorMittal group that see this vision and have developed systems and put into the market this XCarb program to show our strong determination to do what is right for the environment. Because as we say, steel is the fabric of life. We need it in our everyday life. So it's not a case of stop making steel. We can't do that. But what we can do is make it in a green way.
Yeah, 100%. There's always different ways of doing it. And it's like you said, it's that balance of not digging yourself into a hole economically for the business, but certainly doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex. The one thing that in terms of doing these webinars that I've noticed when we talk about sustainability or environment for that matter, is that it doesn't. A lot of people always focus on the CO2 and carbon, and rightly so, but it's a whole gambit of other things. Do you feel like steel reinforcement and the whole industry is doing enough for local communities and feeding back into that kind of community feel? Or can there be more?
It's certainly an area that we focus on heavily. Community engagement, engaging with local prisons and ex-offenders, ex-armed forces, donating to all sorts of charities. There's lots of things that we do. I don't think that and there's lots of stuff that lots of companies are doing really, really well. I just don't think that the sustainability framework is there to capture all of that in a measurable way. There's so many different sustainability schemes on the market. There's no one kind of go-to scheme, and there's no framework that puts all of that information in a nice orderly fashion. There's schemes all over the place, and that's where I think we're probably not doing ourselves any favours. If there was a scheme that we can all go to, benchmark against each other, and we're quite collaborative as an industry. I mean, just last week I was talking to some colleagues from Mittal about health and safety issues, and we're quite open with each other, and we're quite happy to BIRFA and BAR work together and share best practice and collaborate. I just think that the sustainability framework's not doing us any favours at the minute. Yes, we're doing good things, but we're all doing good things in many different ways. Whereas in terms of everything else that we do, quality, health and safety, environmental, the framework is very rigid. You've got the standard to go to. I think we're lacking that somewhat with sustainability, and I think that's where we need to speed up a bit.
Sure. Stephen, would you echo those thoughts?
Yes, I mean, certainly sustainability, it would be nice to have. But in terms of social value that you mentioned, we've got all of the acts from government of what contracts expect from there. I'm in the process of doing a report at the moment as to what BAR members do in terms of social value. And it's a massive field. So you have to remember that being a good company these days isn't just about turning the lights on, saving carbon. It's about so such a wide remit these days. Social value, like I mentioned, and there's another point I think the industry needs to shout about, keeping on the green theme. And that's to address the misinformation that reinforcement and reinforced concrete itself is a green ogre. That's not the case. There's a lot of inherent carbon reduction, long-term performance benefits of reinforced concrete. And I think as an industry, we need to start chatting about those more so that people can make an informed decision, whether it's timber or steel buildings and reinforced concrete. And we mentioned about the innovation that the cement manufacturers are doing in terms of carbon capture, and in terms of realizing that long term a concrete building absorbs 30% of CO2, and that's something we don't that was used to manufacture the components to begin with. And that's something we don't shout about. I think we need to widen and not be ashamed of what we're doing. We're addressing the significant CO2 produced by the industry, but we need to show over the whole lifetime of a building that CO2 is tiny compared to the operational CO2. And when it comes to the operational CO2, reinforced concrete structures, and I think that's the moment.
Okay, see, just lost you there at the end, but we got the gist of that final statement. Okay, so final topic is, it says trade associations and driving product innovation, but I think just driving product innovation in general, because we've all got our part to play. And I'd just like to start with Phil, if I may, in terms of doing a little bit of research and what you and Dave have also previously mentioned around X-Carb. I noticed there was a lot of things going on there. I noticed something to do with a quick and zip splice, is it diaphragm wall pile? Apologies if I haven't got that exactly right, but you're clearly doing a lot of things in product innovation. Is this something that's core to your business and the development of that?
Me or Dave?
Yeah, sorry, Phil, you.
Absolutely core, and I'm blessed that I've got a team of young engineers around me that get really enthusiastic about innovation and coming up with better ideas, new ideas to make life easier, not only for ourselves but for our customers. We do a lot of 3D printing in the design office to model out these ideas so that we can see them at first hand. Virtual reality is also part of that package, where we've had customers come in wearing, putting on VR screens so that they can see how the steel connections of our assemblies would work. That's very much part of the DNA, especially within the young generation of engineers that I've got within the business, and it's great to see.
Fantastic. I think it's only out that we move on to Dave Beams. I mentioned him at the start of that. Dave, you got anything to add to those comments?
What is nice is that when a lot of the issues that we come up against with customers, we take a very different attitude to some of the more traditional businesses, because as Phil said, he's got an unusual team. Most of us are not from the reinforcing industry. We've come from other strands of engineering, so we don't look at the problems as reinforcing problems. We look at them as engineers, and we can see solutions that have been around in engineering and associated industries for years, and we can bring them into the industry. But hopefully these developments not only make it quicker and easier to make the cage connections or solve ongoing problems, but it also makes it safer. And that's the biggest priority for us as a group policy. And as one of Phil's favourite sayings, no ton of production is worth any accident. So if we can stop an accident on site by a minor bit, a small innovation, that's what we intend to do.
Absolutely bang right. First and foremost, as always, safety. So finally, I know we've run on a little bit, but I'd like to come to Stephen and firstly Alex in terms of trade associations and driving product innovation forward. Are we doing enough? Can we do more? What are you specifically doing?
Yeah, I mean, we can always do more. Definitely agree with Dave on the safety point. We're always looking at how can we do things more efficiently, how can we improve safety, both in prefabrication and on site. So cage connections, all of that type of stuff. Definitely doing a lot, but we can always do more. Just on the product itself, we've spoken in kind of forums before about innovating rebar, high strength rebar, intermediate sizes, 28mm, 36mm or 38mm. Any of these things that we can add into the mix that don't currently exist, that are probably not too difficult to do. It just gives the designers more ideas, and it just adds that little extra bit of innovation into the design thinking that's not currently there. But yeah, there's still a lot to do, but again, we're quite proactive.
Fantastic. And finally, Stephen?
Well, basically, as a trade association, we're there to get people talking, to discuss new ideas, discuss new ways of doing things, to collaborate and move things forward. So that's our main role at BAR, is to provide an industry forum where innovation and new ways of doing things can be looked at.
Fantastic. Chaps, we've come to the end of my questions and conversation. Has anybody got anything to add or to summarise what we've been talking about today?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, from myself, thank you so much for joining me. Absolute pleasure. I found that really interesting. It's always good to get different takes on different topics, regardless of the industry. But I think with the product innovation and the way it's more traditional and the way we can bring different things in and different skills and new techniques, it's really exciting times for construction and rebar. So Stephen, Phil, Alex, Dave, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for everybody for joining us today. This will be available. The recording will be available once it's downloaded and it's got on the website. Check out our other webinars on the BBA website. Chaps, I'll leave you with this one thing. Paul Timms was with us, but he had to leave bang on 12:30. He says thank you so much, but he's going to catch up later, the tail end of this conversation. So I think we've hit a few good notes with everybody that joined us. So hopefully see you again soon. And thanks once again.
Cheers.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.